This is Embracing Your Essence on Lilydale Radio, and I'm Colleen van der Zijden, and I am a registered medium here at Lilydale, and I'm also a certified intuitive life coach. And as a life coach, I connect in with the problems people have and help them solve them, basically. We come up with strategies and things like that. As a medium, as you know, we connect with our loved ones on the other side. So we are going to talk about tonight the myth of living here in this life, wanting to be more spiritual, and how sometimes we think we need to suffer. So many of us have this belief that we have to suffer in some way, that there's this painful price we have to pay to be spiritual. And I'm sorry, I'm just laughing because the rain is so hard and so loud. And so I'm really hoping it's not bothering you. I'm glad to see you all. Nice to see you, Barb. Yay. So what was happening? What happened that made me want to talk about this is I was doing a meditation. And in my meditation, I wanted to feel the God energy. Fully, completely, totally be immersed in it. I wanted to really feel it. And I said to myself, this is what I want more than anything in the world. This is what I want. And immediately my brain went to, I hope somebody doesn't have to die. And I thought, what was that? Why would I say that I want to be in this meditation, and immediately go to, I hope somebody doesn't have to die so I can get there. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is something. And I noticed it, thank goodness. And I immediately heard, yet further, there is no trade. There is no trade. Right there, I realized what had been happening. Somewhere deep inside of me, I had believed, and may still do to some point, I don't know yet, may have believed that to get what I want, I had to lose something. Do you ever think about that you have to lose something to get what you want, that there is a price you have to pay? Hi, Evie. Hi, Cheryl. Nice to see you. Darlene. Yay. Tammy. How exciting. So with this, where we feel like we have to lose something, give something up to get what we want, that's really a false limiting belief that's been conditioned from something in the past. Now, I grew up in a traditional Christian religion, and I went to Sunday school and all of that. And some of the nuns there were a little bit Old Testament, some of the scary stories in the Old Testament, and talking about, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. You don't do that, all this stuff. So I have picked up along my life, apparently today, learning today that this is what's happened, that there is that price that has to be paid. I've been conditioned from those church experiences and probably other things. And when we have to pay, and we do have to pay, don't we, in some ways, because we pay for everything in one way or another. But the problem here is when it's a painful paying, where we feel like it has to be a painful thing. My idea that I want to be totally immersed in the God energy immediately took me to, geez, I hope I don't die. I hope somebody else doesn't die so I can do it. I had this trading idea in my head. And with that, it's based on this fear of loss, or we believe that there is no abundance. There's not enough abundance for everybody. And I realized so many of us, because if I'm believing this, and you know me, I'm teaching people you're limitless, you've got so much abundance, you can do whatever you want. And here I'm going, and I'm catching myself, right? And I love to share my problems with you. And so here I'm noticing this, and it affects us in so many different ways. So we are going to talk a little bit about some ideas, some misperceptions we might have that we may not realize are symbolic of this belief that we have to pay and it has to be painful. I had no idea. Like I said, I had this unaware belief. No idea at all. It was a beautiful insight, and it really got me thinking. And just the awareness of that, I tried to go back into that meditation, and I did get back in a little bit, and I could feel the energy coming in. But then it kind of stopped, and I realized I needed to work on that idea a little bit more. Georgine is saying, the nuns almost like to put that fear out there to us. They really did, didn't they? They were old-fashioned nuns back when I was growing up. I'm assuming they're different now. I don't really know any nuns right now. So it's so interesting. But when I started to really think about this idea, memories started to come back. And one of them was my brother died when I was about 26. He was 16. And I remember clearly thinking after he died, oh, good, we've had the bad thing. Now we're safe. Nothing else is going to happen. So in my mind, even then, well, probably even stronger then, right? I believe there had to be a trade. We had this big loss So now we were safe for a little bit. We paid the price with the pain. So now we don't have to worry anymore. Isn't that interesting? It also goes with something I say with my daughter so frequently. You know, when you have something bad happen, it could be, an acquaintance passes or your car gets wrecked and you need to get a new car. And you say, I don't know if everybody does this, if it's just me and my family, I don't know. But we would say, oh, okay, we've had 2. We only have 1 more thing to go. And then we're covered. We're okay. Oh, yeah, we've got our 3 now. We had this, this, and this. We're good. Nothing else bad is going to happen. So we have this idea of the trade and the pain that has to go with it. This belief stops us from fully living. We are not fully experiencing the physical life. We are not living as our innate, natural, spiritual self. For me, of course, spiritual growth is primary importance for me. That's how I live. I want to be as spiritual as possible. From my perspectives, of course, do the right things, all of that. But when I understand that I have this limiting belief, then I have to figure out a way to let go of it, a way to understand that it's false, that it's limiting, that it's affected me in more ways than I can imagine. So think about this. You might intellectually understand that you're limitless, you have abundance, all of that stuff. You might understand it, but it could pop up when I talk about some more things. Ashley, yes, everything happens in 3s. Isn't that interesting? We have been so conditioned to believe so much. I think I could live to be 150 and still never figure out how I have been conditioned in so many different ways. Let's see, Ryan, in my personal experience, when you leave what's normal in quotes and you leave organized religion for spiritualism, you go through some suffering because you will lose relationships. That process in itself is painful. I am going to talk about that tonight, Ryan. I really am. Barb is asking, isn't that superstition? In a way it is, yes. It's also a coping mechanism where we're trying to reassure ourselves that we're not going to have more and more bad things coming at us, that it's just limited. It's really a misperception that we kind of play a game with ourselves so we feel better. That's really what we're doing. Isn't that crazy? But we all do it, don't we, in different ways? Hi, Larissa. Georgine, what does the 3 represent? I know the 3 is a very important number. It's a very important number in the Bible. There is from the traditional Christian religions, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the triad there. And that's, I believe, where a lot of it comes from, is the emphasis on the number 3 being sacred in some way. I'm sure with a Google, we can get into so much more with that. So let's think about some of these ideas I'm going to share with you, these misperceptions that are related to becoming more spiritual, but can apply to so many other things, not just being spiritual, but also being happy. Where's Miss Lilydale? I'm seeing you there. Yes, I tell people now, when people come, I'm having a lot of first timers for readings. I said, you picked an interesting time to come, but it's very quiet and very peaceful now because all our workshops are online. So people who are here are just wandering the grounds, maybe going to some stump services and getting readings. So it is very peaceful. If you're looking for a quiet place, this is it. You will not have to be in any crowds. It's nice to be here. Darlene, yes, prayers are said in 3s. Yes, there's so many things. So think about this one. When you were growing up or at some point in your life, did you ever hear about, a monk or a Buddhist or anybody going off and being in a cave and meditating for anywhere from, 3 months to 3 years or something like this? We go off and we meditate and we pick up this idea that to become spiritual, we have to spend time alone in meditation, in solitude. And what is it we're paying the price for there? We're giving up family. We're giving up friends. We're giving up our society, our community around us. We're giving up all of that and depriving ourselves in order to reach enlightenment. And there are many stories about that in all sorts of spiritual texts. And I know some people do this. I actually know somebody who did that, went away for 3 months, literally was in a cave and got so many insights. So yes, it can be valuable. It's not necessary for your growth, however, but believing that should be there for you, that you need that solitude, can limit you from reaching your own sense of spirituality in the way that works for you. Just because you've heard this doesn't mean it's your path. For some people, yes, maybe it's a good challenge for them. They really want to do it. That's the way it is. Looking that Debbie is at, yes, it is raining there. Can you hear it, Debbie? It is raining. It's a little loud on my air conditioner. Prayers for total healing of gut, please. Okay, everybody, we're going to send Dolores some prayers for healing. Just, think about that for a second. Just send some healing to Dolores. So living in a cave, we're depriving ourselves in that way. Meditation, yes, is important for your spiritual growth. It's taken me a long time to come to that understanding and acceptance of it, because I do have a hard time, as some of you will imagine, you know me, shutting my brain down a little bit. But I am finding, especially now in this life we are experiencing right now with the consciousness shift, everything happening, the darkness being exposed, so much happening that is challenging and negative, that I have to meditate. I absolutely have to take 10 to 20 minutes or more a day to be still and just reconnect to myself. And if you're not doing that and you're experiencing anxiety, I strongly recommend it. And this can really help. Barb is saying retreats are wonderful. And yes, I went to a retreat once where it was a silent. We didn't talk. Again, hard for me. But it was important for everybody to just get that feeling of uncomfortability. That, again, doesn't mean you have to go to a cave for 3 or more months. Okay, so just think about that. Next one. This is a big one for people who are in the spiritual fields, especially people who work in the spiritual fields. That spiritual people can't or shouldn't have money. I have been brought up, as have many of you, I'm sure, to believe the nuns and the priests, they didn't have money. That if you're spiritual, if you're really spiritual, it's a judgment, a perception people have. If you're really spiritual, you won't charge for your services. You won't, that you need to be poor. You need to not have money. And people in spiritual fields have a really hard time. We struggle with putting a price tag on what we offer. And this is something that can be, this is something that can really make us question our own abilities or question our own self-worth and value. So with that perception, sometimes people will have a hard time paying for something. I remember once somebody posted on my website page that I should be donating. And I'm talking to other people, of course, and I got the same thing as a musician. I should be donating it. For some reason, spirituality, music, the arts, the creative endeavors in a way too, because they're inspired or whatever, should be gifts to other people. But what some people don't realize is the amount of money and time people in a spiritually related field have put into it. I can't tell you the thousands of dollars I've put into various workshops, classes, and trainings, supplies, all sorts of things, so that I can share what I know and I can help people on their spiritual path. So when we have this belief, underlying belief, that spiritual people shouldn't have money or should be poor or should donate everything, it can make us it can make us hard. What I might want to say? It can make it hard for us to say no when somebody asks. We, here in Lilydale, the mediums get asked a lot to volunteer for things. And I don't mind volunteering, but I also have to remember to stay in my energy where I can do my best work. I have to be very careful about how I spend my energy. I can't be out every night donating time. I just can't do it. It's too much. So living as a spiritual being, you do have to take care of yourself. But this idea of being poor or whatever, people can struggle with the money aspect of it. We can feel guilty sometimes for charging for our time. I'm looking to see the comments for right now. Yes. Oh, Stacy, what a great point. Stacy says, when it comes to the bad things coming in threes, you unfortunately put yourself in the position of dreading a second or third bad event to the extent it leads to more worry and anxiety in the long run. And that can be true. When I do this with my daughter, it's usually we've had 2 things and we're like, uh-oh, or we've already had the 3 things, so we don't anticipate it. So that's good, because I'm glad I'm not creating more anxiety for myself. I don't need that. That wouldn't be good. Now, here's another big one for spiritual people. And so much of this can be substituted with the word happy, not just spiritual, not just spiritual. Here's a big one. We have to be kind and caring. We have to sacrifice our needs to help others. We have this belief sometimes that spiritual people have to help, no matter at what cost to ourselves. Part of this is amplified because as spiritual people, we want to help. We really do. We want to help. And if we're not careful about our boundaries, we will overextend. We will be there for people. Okay? We can get these guilt trips going. People might try to give us the guilt trips as well. Well, you're a spiritual person. I don't understand why you're not rushing off to help that person. You really should be doing this. You really should be doing that. And so sometimes this moves us into a bit of a martyr energy that we help, and then we become victims. It's like, oh, I'm helping all the time and I'm exhausted, and don't people see this? And we start to hold resentment towards other people. And we have to make sure we're protecting ourselves. Along with this helping is what we are doing is we are unconsciously, not even subconsciously, we are unconsciously creating suffering because we have this belief we have to sacrifice ourselves, that it's so important that we be there for everyone. And this is suffering in the name of being spiritual. We're giving up on ourselves. We're losing who we are. So we have to be strong in those boundaries. This can also happen in relationships. You know, I had a relationship in the last few years where I'm really big on accepting people as they are, of course, you know, and you can't change them. Acceptance never means approval, but you can accept them as they are. But I didn't know where my line was with what was acceptable to me. And as a spiritual person, if I said this, would it be taken the wrong way? Would a spiritual person say that? So I created during that time a few years ago, a lot of self-judgment and self-criticism. Is this spiritual? Should I do it this way? Should I not do it this way? What am I doing? So spiritual people, we hold ourselves to a very high standard. We want to be good at what we do. We want to do our best. We want to help. It is a calling. And when something is a calling, it's a priority. We spend all of our time doing this. And that's when we forget about ourselves. And that's when we can move into suffering unintentionally, not realizing we have this underlying hidden belief that we have to pay somehow to be spiritual. Isn't that crazy? But we do it. So many of us do. Oh, I've got to read all these comments. Look at you guys going. I love this. I was talking about this with someone today. I love helping, but I can only do it to a point. I have had people make me feel bad if I don't do enough for them. It can be discouraging. I understand. It has taken me a long, long time to get to the point where I'm comfortable with what I charge. I know it's a lot, but I try to give my very best to it. And as many of you know, I don't end on time. I do use a timer now because I have to be very careful of my energy at this time of life. With everything around me, the background stressors, plus the energy is a little off lately. So I have to be very careful. But we also notice the timer doesn't stop me. So we want to give, and we have to learn to respect our own needs. There have been times in the past where I've given too much in readings. I tried too hard, trying to please somebody or whatever it was. And I used my energy, and I was so depleted. I couldn't do anything for like 24 hours. I couldn't do a thing at all. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything. So we have to be very mindful of ourselves. Evie is saying, 2 things have happened for me recently. My intuition and meditation practice are really blossoming. An issue with my eyesight. A friend told me that spiritual awakening is sometimes associated with loss of eyesight. Okay, I'm not going to click on the see more because I'm always afraid I'm going to screw something up. That is so interesting, Evie. I have noticed many of my clients and some of my friends too, we are noticing, even with the odd energy, that we're getting so much more spiritually. I'm getting some evidence that I just can't believe that is coming through during readings. It's just something else. And also, here's something for you, Evie. When I started doing a lot of healing work and really connecting, I would go deaf in my left ear. And it would just, as soon as I got into that energy, my left ear would go. And then I was fine. It stopped doing it. So your eyesight, it could be, not to dismiss any physical things, of course, okay? Never, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know crap. But it could be that the part of your mind is not wanting to see something that's new for you because you're awakening even more. And so it might be kind of trying to blur it a little bit, so to speak. just to stop you from seeing. Okay, that's a totally just comes into my head. Nobody take that as gospel truth or anything like that, but it's something to consider. You just never know, because our physical bodies do react as we awaken. They definitely do. Robin is saying, I have had to really work on saying no and not feeling guilty. I know we want to help so much, don't we? Energy vampires. I just talked about that in my Empowered Empath workshop. The 2 workshops I did for Lily Dale this year that were on Zoom, I am going to make them into online workshops, and you'll be able to buy them from my website. I have to edit them, so that'll happen a little bit later in the year. But you'll be able to do that because I did talk about that, energy vampires there. Money can be the root of all evil. It can. The thing is, that's for people who are focused on money. Most spiritual people, and yes, I understand there are spiritual people out there who are, what's the word? Unscrupulous? Is that the word I want to say? Where it's all about money for them. They're taking advantage of people who want to learn and grow. Okay, so there are people like that. But for the most part, most spiritual people, truly spiritual people, are not focused on money and are more focused on service. I like your third eye on the hand behind you. Linda, thank you. That was made by my assistant. She sent it to me. She felt motivated to send it to me. It's so exciting. I told her I was going to hang it up right here. It's a like embroidery thing. It's beautiful. Money is a necessity for surviving. Yes, it is. I'm just going to skip down a little bit. Hey, Ashley, love the workshop. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome, Evie. Thank you, everybody. It's so nice. I can't tell you how excited I am to be talking to you tonight. So let's go on and talk about some more of these little misperceptions. And you ask the questions, you make comments, I'm going to go off on those. So it's always good. Yes, good. Lorian, I'm actually a minister in the Church of Living Spirit. It's a good church. All of them are good, but I, of course, have a little preference for that one. So here's another one for spiritual people, that spiritual people have to live a certain way. You notice the superiority in my tone now? We may have heard that this is the only way to live, that really, if you're spiritual, you should be a vegetarian, because if you're really spiritual, you wouldn't be killing all those animals. Okay, now I am not a vegetarian because I really don't like vegetables very much. I know. I've worked on it over the years. I'm doing the best I can. So if I liked vegetables, I probably would be a vegetarian, but it's not a necessity. Another thing is sometimes people think spiritual people don't have any vices, that people don't drink or smoke or whatever, or swear, things like that. And we have these expectations of how people should be if they're spiritual. And what happens with this is when we think we we want to become spiritual, that we have to be different. We have to change something. We can't be ourselves. We can't enjoy the drink we like to have, or the smoke if you like that, or the meat you like, whatever it is. We feel like we can't have it. And so we have to give something up. If you want to give it up, that's a different thing. Yes, your body will shift, and you may come through that shifting and say, you know what? I really do have to give up this because I feel better when I'm not having sugar, or I'm not having gluten, or I'm not having caffeine. That's your personal choice, not based on anyone else's thing, as what's right for you. Along with that, when we think of spiritual people, and I talked about this a little bit a while ago, and this similar to this, is we think spiritual people are happy all the time. That we're just happy all the time. And we don't express any negative emotions ever. And as you know, that really is not accurate, because we have to be ourselves. And we have to express emotions. And because we're spiritual doesn't mean we're going to be happy all of the time. So in essence, when we feel that if we're spiritual, we should gloss over things and just, oh, well, it's just the way it's supposed to be. Well, yeah, it's the way it's supposed to be. But if you're really pissed off about it, get pissed off about it and go with that. Because if we believe that we're supposed to be happy all the time, we're negating ourselves. We're giving up ourselves. We're not living fully. We're not experiencing the emotions, and we have to be ourselves. There apparently is this, I don't even know what it is, a group or a movement I just heard about out there, where they basically do that. They kind of, it's all the surfacey stuff. It's not getting into the depths of the shadows. We have to face ourselves. We have to look at the parts of ourselves we don't like, those shadow parts, the parts we deny, ignore, wish we didn't have, the parts that say we're mean sometimes, that we're hateful sometimes, we're horrible sometimes. And just look at that and go, well, that's a part of me and it's okay. And I love myself anyway. When I notice myself acting that way, I'll acknowledge it, I'll recognize it, and then I'll move on. If we're not being ourselves, we're censoring ourselves based on some kind of perception of who we are. And that is never good. We have to be ourselves. We are living in the physical. Living in the physical means we need to live in the physical. We need to experience all of it, the ups, the downs, the happies, the sads. We get to choose. We have that free will. We can do whatever we want. Your spiritual path is your spiritual path. Once you become aware that you may have these beliefs that are stopping you, that are limiting your expression, like mine feeling like I had to make a trade to be more spiritual, just having that awareness was enough to help me go, whoa, that's something. Because, I think I'm doing pretty well with my growth. And then all of a sudden I have another insight. And when I have the insight, what do? I laugh. I'm like, yes, look at that. I have a belief that's holding me back. Whoa, what can I do with this? That's me. I want to find out. I want to find out what it is. It's a game for me now. Yes, Ryan's saying, I like meat. I like meat too. And Allison, we are still human. We are. Yes, Debbie, I've been connected to the divine and very content and focused, but recently have become disconnected. Difficulty grounding, hard to find my soul, and it's frustrated. Hopefully it won't last. And suppressing feelings for Darlene is not good. Yes, Debbie, I can tell you that what we're all experiencing now, and I knew I'd be talking about life today because that's me, we are all experiencing so many energetic shifts. Remember, the consciousness shift is happening. Remember, that's happening. We've got those background stressors, all this crap going on, so much happening. We turn around and something else happens that we didn't expect. We watch a video and it's like, whoa. And even sometimes we find it hard to meditate. We can't get out of our heads enough. And I'm finding at times it's hard for me to let go, to stop with the thinking, not just in meditation, but even trying to fall asleep sometimes. I have a hard time with that. So I've been exploring some different avenues that you might want to try. There's some things called binaural beats. You can find some music online, bilateral beats as well. You can find this if you Google it on YouTube. Well, go on YouTube, look it up. Binaural beats, and you'll see binaural beats for sleep, binaural beats for meditation, and apparently I can't say binaural beats tonight. And you can find these things, and if you listen with a headset or earbuds or something like this, you'll get the effect in your head. And it's a really cool way to get out of your mind and get back into your soul. And remember also, sometimes when we feel disconnected, Mother Teresa felt disconnected from Jesus. She felt that she had been abandoned. She felt that he wasn't there for her anymore. And she went through much of the end of her life not knowing that he was still there. She didn't feel him. She wasn't having the messages she used to have. When I heard that, I thought, whoa, if Mother Teresa of all people couldn't feel the spiritual and the divine, then I guess I'm okay when I have those moments when I'm not feeling it. But remember, sometimes when you're not feeling it, it's because the energy is inside so much. It's helping you catch up. Okay, it's just inside. It's going on inside. I call it an intermission, little catching up with yourself. So that could be happening as well. There's so much there. Shutting the mind off at night is hard. This too. And the thing is, we all have the good days where we feel inspired, motivated. And then we have the other days where we can't get going in the morning. We just can't. We can't get going. So yesterday, it took me about 4 or 5 hours before I finally felt like myself again. It was really weird, but I'm learning that I have to just accept how I'm feeling. So on the days I feel great, I try to get a lot done. And the days I'm just like slow, I just go with it. Go, today, this is the day I'm just supposed to be resting and do whatever. Go find those pieces of music or something that help me get in there. So we've a little bit wandered away, but it's very important, I think, because some of these underlying fears that we have to pay a price does pertain to now as well, because with that consciousness shift, we might feel like we're supposed to suffer in order to grow, that what's happening around us is painful. It is painful. It's emotionally draining, but that doesn't mean we have to suffer with it. Life has all sorts of problems in it, and that's how we do grow, because we can learn from our experiences, learn from everything, but that doesn't mean we have to suffer. We acknowledge it, we feel the emotions, and we move forward. Suffering is when we just keep going, and it's just horrible and horrible. Or we have to sacrifice ourselves, who we are. We have to change everything about ourselves to be more spiritual. We don't. The spiritual growth that's happening now is very profound. We take 5 steps forward and 10 steps back, and we just keep going forward and back and forward and back. And we got to cut ourselves a little break here with this and let ourselves relax and just go, it's okay. The process is working. We don't have to control it. We don't have to fix it. We don't have to believe we have to suffer. We don't have to sacrifice ourselves. There is no trade. Even though there is a price that's being paid now, it doesn't have to be suffering and sacrificing. We can just go with it and experience it. Now, another thing we might do sometimes, one more thing, and then we'll talk about all sorts of other stuff. Spiritually awakening. Who knows how long I've talked? I talk a lot, don't I? But I haven't seen you in so long. Have you ever noticed sometimes when you're going through a rough time, you try to bargain with God? Okay, if you give me this, then I'll do that. Or somebody's sick in your family. Oh, please, God, if he comes through, I will give up smoking, or whatever it is that you want to bargain with. This is a sign that you believe you have to trade. That if you bargain there, you're trading, and you're willing to put yourself through suffering of whatever it is you're bargaining with in order to get what you want. And so many of us will do this. So much of this comes from those old Bible stories and things that we were talking about, as you're growing up. A big one too with this. Remember, we talked a little bit about this, and I think it was Ryan maybe who mentioned it earlier. When we spiritually awaken, so many times people say, when you spiritually awaken, it's the death of your ego. Well, what does that do when somebody says it's going to be the death of your ego? It gets us scared. Our energy constricts, because that means a death. We're going to die. And it's like, oh, what do you mean a death of my ego? Oh, I'm not going to be myself. I'm going to have to lose everything and everyone around me. I'm going to, we go into the negative what ifs and all of that. And this is scary for us when people say something like that. It's the death of who you used to be. It's just the word death is so dramatic when we go with that. We don't want to lose ourselves, and we think we have to lose in order to be spiritual. I'm not denying that sometimes we have shifts and we will lose people. But what's happening is we're growing out of them. We're not in that same vibration anymore. Or we may lose our job, for example, and that can cause suffering and some bad emotions and stuff. But it brings us and opens a doorway to something better. I can think back, and of course, I'm sure many of you can as well, to think of some things that happened in the past that were challenging, negative, hard, but you might recognize it opened a doorway for you. And that out of that experience, you learned more about yourself. You became more spiritual. But you didn't stay in the suffering. You experienced the emotions and you moved on and you grew from it. So even with this awakening, losing pieces of yourselves, it's losing parts of you that are no longer valid for you. You don't need them anymore. You're releasing things. In this mind, our mind tricks us into believing that when we awaken or we're shifting or something's happening, that it's a bad thing, that we're going to have to lose all sorts of things. And even the bad stuff, sometimes we don't want to lose because we're comfortable there. We understand it. It's familiar. Being with what we know feels more comfortable than moving into the uncertainty of the unknown. It's more comfortable, so we can hold on to things and resist the release of things. If you've gone through an awakening, and I know many of you have, you definitely may lose parts of yourself that just don't work anymore. I can think of some of the things I lost. I'm pretty happy I lost them. I lost a lot of my stress. That was cool. And what we're doing is we are when we're awakening, we're releasing stuff and making space for the God energy, the divine energy to come in stronger and more completely. But with this awakening thing, with this perception that when you awaken, you're going to lose so much. And I have talked about that in the past. So I'm sorry if I've misled you along your path. But yes, these things will happen where things change. But it solidifies the idea that we have to lose something to become our best spiritual selves. So when we think about all this stuff, if you're open and willing to explore this thought, this possibility that there is something within you that you may also share this belief that I apparently did, that there's an underlying sense that we have to trade, bargain, lose something to get something. Think about that. Just consider it. And if we know, now, here's a really cool thing. Later on, a couple days later, I did my meditation again, and I wanted to go into that space again. And I'm like, okay, I want to feel it as strongly as possible. And I heard the phrase, you're already in it. What is it you want exactly? And I thought, that's important. So we're already in this energy. We already are in the limitless energy. We're already in the energy of spiritual abundance. We're already there. So if we can pay attention to what's happening when we're looking for something, wanting something, and there's nothing wrong with wanting things, we look at that, we can start to see these underlying beliefs. Life has pain and loss, yes, but we don't have to stay there suffering, even if your mind tells you do. Robin, this pandemic and quarantine has honestly helped me grow. I have realized I have outgrown many people and things in these last few months, but I have found some wonderful blessings in this process. Yes. And people are having these experiences, where really cool things are happening. They might be finding people to be in a relationship with, even though we're in a pandemic. They might be realizing some of the people around them are holding them back from themselves. And some people are really enjoying this time of the quiet, the peace, the less busyness, not having to be with people you don't want to be with. So we have to remember what we're liking about this time and take it forward with us and somehow find out how we can integrate all of this in our lives. So we're having all this, when we're, as that spiritual person and wanting to be there and feeling this idea that we shouldn't have pain or we shouldn't express ourselves and all this stuff, we can begin to release these ideas and realize we're here to live. We're just here to live. And if you want to be a spiritual person, you want to be your spiritual self, you want to be connected to God, spirit, the divine, universal energy, it's already there. You already have it. So as you start to look at some of these beliefs that might be in your way, just the awareness alone is enough to start transforming them. You don't have to do a lot. You just have to be aware of it. It's made a huge difference in my just recognizing this now. Then with that comes the feeling to understand you don't have to give anything up because you're already you. Even though people say sometimes you should act a certain way, you should be a certain way, or even you may have those belief systems that are limiting you that you should be a certain way. Whenever you say, I should do this, or if I was spiritual, I should really do this, I should be meditating, I should be, eating better, I should be whatever, that's a sign to look and see what belief you've got that's telling you that. What is telling you should be doing this? That's another thing that's going to cause more pain, suffering, sacrificing yourself, all of that. Let's see, finding new ways of enjoying life. Yes. So, it's so cool. You are already the love and the light. You are already in the soul of who you are. Your soul is connected to the spiritual, to the divine. What you're really doing as you're living now is you're rediscovering your innate spiritual nature. You're rediscovering who you already are. The only thing you have to give up, you don't have to give up anything else. You don't have to trade, you don't have to bargain, nothing. The only thing you have to give up is the fear that is influencing you. And all of these things come from a fear of this or that. Okay, my cat has just awakened from the perch in the window. So I must now let the cat out. Bye-bye, baby. See you later. and I have to shut the door so the other cat doesn't come in and jump up on the table because he will. So there was the cat moment. So if you believe you are love and your soul is love and your soul is part of the divine, there is never a need to trade. There is never a need to bargain. Nothing. Let's see. Allison, yes, I don't force myself to do things anymore. Here's a really cool strategy. I haven't talked about this in a long time, and I actually don't know if I've talked about it on this show or if it was my other show. A friend of mine, she says she only does things that are a 9 or a 10 out of a 10. So now you've got to look at the consequences of things, though. So a 9 or a 10. So say, let's talk about a dirty diaper. Say you need to change a dirty diaper. Obviously, changing a dirty diaper is a -10 on anybody's scale, and you don't want to do it. However, you change the dirty diaper because the baby needs to be clean, and you want the baby to be healthy and clean, and that's a 10 out of 10. So you change the diaper because it's a 10 out of 10. So if somebody asks you to do something, so they ask you to be on a board, for example, as I was, somebody tried to recruit me the other night to be on a board for something, and you know that it's not in your best interest to do it, and you go, okay, is being on the board, how is that going to affect my energy? It's going to really deplete my energy. So that is not a 9 or a 10 out of a 10. And then I can go, well, I can also take it now. How much do I want to help? I really do want to help, but my boundary says no, because I know it will be too much. So that's a fun thing to play with. Just to kind of, do it with simple things first. Do I really want to eat this dinner? Is it a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10? If it's like a 3 out of 10, geez, eat something else. And start getting that in your head of different ways you can do it. Let's see. Doris is asking about the power outages. Nothing here in Lilydale. We're good here, which is great. And Ryan is saying fear is the strongest emotion a human being has. I don't want to get into that too much, but I would say love is, but fear, because our mind naturally goes to the negative. We have a negativity bias in our mind. We look for fear. We look for danger. It's easier to go there. So if we know that, we can consciously choose to go a different way. When we're dealing with these underlying fears, these thoughts, these ideas, we, of course, are always back to trust. We have to continue to work with trust. When I had that message the other day of, you're already in the energy, what is it you want? I'm like, oh, right. Sorry. Kind of forgot that, So with that comes the idea, you've got to remember to trust that you already have it. You already are it. Even though you may have a belief that's influencing you, limiting you, stopping you from being your best self, trust that you can shift it, you can see it, you can change it, you can do it. It's amazing. Trust works. It's a myth. It is totally a myth that we have to suffer for anything or sacrifice ourselves for anyone, anything, or to be spiritual. It's totally a myth. It came out of all those stories from a long time ago. It's kind of like seeps into us. We don't even know it's there, that human conditioning thing. We've been conditioned to believe what's bad or good. We have to give something up to be spiritual, that we are somehow wrong, or, here's a good one, we have to punish ourselves in some way. Would you watch that Da Vinci movie with the guy he'd like whip himself and stuff? Whoa, craziness. So there are people who believe that suffering is essential to be spiritual. People believe that sacrificing yourself is the ultimate in spirituality. My belief system is that when we are living as our best self, we are living true to ourselves, in our boundaries, in our energy, the love energy. We are connected to spirit, and God and spirit and universe, everything wants us to be ourselves. That's what we're here to do. That's who we're here to be. We're supposed to be ourselves. And so if we are sacrificing ourselves, we're not ourselves. If we're suffering, we're not ourselves. If we're feeling like we have to give something up to be ourselves, we're not ourselves. The goal is always to be ourselves and our bright, shining light that we are. We are the love. We are the light. We're already there. So we just have to kind of release some of the stuff that's in our way. Let's see. Craig is saying, I read somewhere that peace has an even higher vibration than love. Ooh, what an interesting thought. I would say that love and peace are, I guess how I look at it is love encompasses so many of those words. Like love is the big one. And inside of love is peace and joy and connection and serenity, and everything is all within the love. That's my theory today. I may change it by tomorrow or in 10 minutes. But yeah, but can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine? Let's just think about this for a second, then I probably could stop talking. Is if everybody, like everybody, everywhere, was living in love, being love, acting in love, aware, conscious. Now, granted, we're all not perfect in that way that we're all going to do that all the time. But if we're intending to do that to the best of our abilities, that's good enough. We're going to take it. If we do that, we would be experiencing so much more peace. People would be connected to each other. We'd be helping each other. We'd be there and being kind to each other. We'd be supporting people. And I know a lot of us are doing this, okay? But I'm talking about a mass shift, where power, and the wrong kind of power, the forcing power, where that's not important. But instead, the spiritual power, your inner power is important, but not the force power, the ego, old-fashioned, I'm going to call it ego of I want to control you power. Yeah, if we're all in love, we wouldn't have that at all. We would all be peaceful. Oh, man. And that's why when we get to the other side, we're so happy because there it is. And, we can feel that, though, here on this side. We can feel that love. And that's what I was doing the other day, trying to feel it. And I'm going to keep working on it because I know there's more for me to learn in that experience of totally immersing myself in it and releasing the rest of whatever might be left of that belief that I have to give something up to get there. It's well ingrained. It's well ingrained that, we have to do that. Yes, Ryan is saying we would be in 5D. We're getting there. We are getting there. Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm just checking comments, see if I missed anything, and then I can wrap up because, oh my goodness, I have talked so much, but I've missed you. I don't know what I'm going to say next week. I have no idea, but I'm sure it'll be fun, whatever it is, assuming my schedule doesn't get really crazy on me. If you have good ideas, something you want me to talk about, let me know because I love to hear. And you know how much I really love to talk about how to handle our problems in a spiritual way, especially now as we're all navigating this shift. It's a pretty crazy time. And I know somebody said, I've had so many clients again ask me about when it's going to be over. And I am not looking ahead. I started to look ahead and I've stopped a couple times now. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to know. I'm just going to stay in the present here. I'm just going to enjoy what I got going right now. And it's all good. I'm just going to do that. Cleaning house of the Karens in my life. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Oh, you guys are funny. Okay, good. So I will wrap up. So I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. I hope that was helpful, gave you some things to think about. You know how much I love to teach and share and inspire people so that you can be your best self, because your light is important for everyone. Your light is so important to get out there. You don't have to be directly influencing people. It's just being you in your light is helping, and you're doing it. I know you are because I can actually feel it. So it's happening. So you can connect with me, of course, at ColleenVanderzuyden.com. Or if you don't want to spell my name, psychicmediumcolleen.com, and on Facebook, Medium and Intuitive Life Coach, Colleen Vanderzuyden in front of that, Medium and Intuitive Life Coach. I'm sure you've followed me. Barb is saying, it'll be over when the humans become humans again. Yes, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Very interesting. Very interesting. So, and don't worry, for those of you who've asked about the groups, I started doing it and then I got crazy busy with readings. I didn't expect to have so many readings during the pandemic. I really didn't. So I'm probably doing about 70% of what I normally do in a summer, a little less this week, apparently, which is fine because I'm working on my book. Amen. For finally again. So thank you so much. I will stop talking. I really will. I promise. So thank you so much. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.